Endometriosis is a disease that affects 1 in 10 women worldwide. Its origin is unknown, and women can go for years without being diagnosed. A clinically non-invasive test for endometriosis, however, could be a game changer in diagnosis of this progressive disease. On this episode of Health Digest, we explore whether biomarkers could add value to imaging in diagnosis of this condition. For many, like 43-year-old Elsie Wandera, experiencing pain during menstruation was considered part of being a woman. After all, the assumption that period pain is normal and something that women should endure continued to impact on the well-being of those living with endometriosis unknowingly.
My pain started when I was 15 years old, and that was when I was in high school. It forced me to skip a lot of classes, and how the pain manifested was I had very painful period cramps. But I was only diagnosed through a laparoscopy when I was 26. For majority of, I think like when I was 15 to 26, before I was definitively diagnosed with endometriosis, it was just painful periods. It didn't have a name. So I didn't know that there was a solution, I didn't know that there was something that could be done to even manage the symptoms. And for many other women out there, endometriosis is one of the top 10 misdiagnosed conditions around the world because the symptoms mimic other diseases. For instance, I think it was, I experienced painful bowel movements, and that could, if I went to the wrong doctor who didn't know, or if I didn't know what I was dealing with, most of the women are actually just diagnosed with irritable bowel movement, or if, for example, it manifests in the lungs, someone could say it's pneumonia or a chest disease, a lung disease, because when you have endometriosis in the thoracic area and in the thoracic region, it could actually result in lung failure.
Since endometriosis symptoms are non-specific and overlap with other diseases, majority end up not being diagnosed on time, leading to long diagnostic delays. In Wandera's case, it took at least 11 years for doctors to nail a diagnosis.
I was diagnosed definitively through a laparoscopy when I was 26 years old. That's about 11 years later. And that impacted my work life. I remember I used to skip work on days when I was either ovulating because I would literally feel the egg moving. I experienced painful bowel movement. And since then, I have gone through 4 surgeries. The last one was in 2020 August, where I underwent an excision surgery. First was encountering, the normalization of period pain. So even like with my family members and friends, there would be utterances or comments around, like girls, this is normal. The pain that I was going through was actually normal. And, comments from doctors ranged from, again, yes, this is normal. There's nothing we can do about it. You will be on family planning meds and pills for the rest of your life for as long as you have the condition, because endometriosis does not have a known medical cure. And the other thing was just the dismissal. When I queried and pushed the doctors for answers, because they did not want to seem like the patient knows, the patient knows more than them, and was demanding for answers. And so and it's part of the reason why I started the foundation, because I just witnessed firsthand the lack of capacity within the healthcare system, the lack of resources, the lack of equal access to healthcare. Like, for example, insurance was not covering some of the surgeries I had to pay out of pocket.
All that while, the onset of every month meant enduring pain and suffering as the condition progressed.
What I was faced with was a sense of hopelessness, feeling like this was a curse. Yet, it's a gift from God, because through our menses we're able to conceive. It's part of our reproductive health system and our reproductive journey as women, which is a fabulous thing. But I dreaded it. And, it was not easy, because my colleagues and some of my friends in school, used to tell me like I was feigning my symptoms because I wanted to skip school or skip responsibilities. And, so for me, the minimizing of the pain and invalidating what I was actually going through was what I went through. And I know many more women are actually faced with that silence, because it's considered an invisible disease. So you cannot see my symptoms. They are not here. Like if I cut my, my wrist here, you'll be able to see the scar. But endometriosis, the symptoms are almost invisible, at least for a majority of women. So because of that, it led a lot of women and has led a lot of women to suffer in silence. And that, I think, is what now made me say, you know what, someone must speak up. Someone must challenge the healthcare system. Someone must work towards improving even the public's knowledge and understanding and on just what endometriosis is. It is just not painful periods. It's a whole body disease. It completely paralyzes you from actually even participating from, in normal activities, like social events, going to work, etc.
Endometriosis, a disease characterized by presence of endometrial tissue outside the uterine cavity and commonly associated with chronic pelvic pain and infertility, presents complex diagnostic challenges. This, according to endometriosis experts like Dr. Ezekiel Mesha of the University of Nairobi's Department of Biochemistry, can cause a lengthy delay between onset of symptoms and diagnosis of the condition.
The other problem is it normally takes a long time for this condition to be diagnosed, because the symptoms of endometriosis are similar to other conditions. Then also what I need to emphasize is that the prevalence of endometriosis is about 6 to 10% in the general population. So if I can put it in the layman point of view, if you take 10 women, one of them is suffering from this condition. But now the problem is most people, they don't know that they are suffering from this condition.
Endometriosis being a progressive illness means that a delay in diagnosis leads to a delay in treatment, which in turn translates to damage that would have otherwise been prevented, as well as fertility challenges that could have been addressed sooner.
The diagnostic period takes around an average of 10 to 11 years. And when we talk about 10 to 11 years, then it means if you look at the effect of this condition, it's going to be very, very worse. So one of the main symptoms of endometriosis is severe pain, more especially during menses or the period around menstruation in women. So now the problem which normally happens is that most women, they take this pain as normal. Yeah, so they normalize the pain. And that's why it normally takes a long time for somebody to be diagnosed.
Despite an array of symptoms, diagnosis of endometriosis is often delayed due to lack of non-invasive, definitive, and consistent method of diagnosis. Most patients like Wandera have to be subjected to a minimally invasive procedure where doctors make a small incision in a patient's abdomen to facilitate insertion of a small tube with a camera to look at the internal tissue.
We have a number of diagnoses of this condition, but the first one is laparoscopy. Laparoscopy is normally the standard way to diagnose endometriosis. But apart from laparoscopy, let's say, for example, somebody comes with pain and also the other signs which are suggestive of endometriosis. They do laparoscopy, which is normally followed by a confirmation. And this confirmation is thorough. A doctor makes a small incision at the abdomen by use of a laparoscope. Then after that, the laparoscopy is able to see the internal organs or the internal structures. So once the doctor has been able to see those internal structures, then they are able to see endometriosis tissues. And once the tissues have been seen, then they are removed by surgery. So that's the common practice. But now the problem is laparoscopy is an invasive process because it needs surgery. You have to look at the internal organ, you have to cut internal organs. Then also the other disadvantage of laparoscopy is in most cases, those tissues grows again. Yeah, so that's why you hear people going for many surgeries.
Whereas laparoscopy is the most common way of diagnosing the condition, scientists like Dr. Ezekiel Mesha of the University of Nairobi's Department of Biochemistry are working to develop a non-surgical way of detecting endometriosis through the use of biomarkers, a move they say will have a significant impact on the quality of life of women who live with a complex and painful condition.
The third method which we are working on, my team and also other researchers globally, is to come up with biomarkers. Yeah, so biomarkers, these are some of the molecules we are trying to see which will form a non-invasive method for diagnosis of this condition. So when we talk about a biomarker, this one refers to a molecule or a substance which is when it's highly expressed, let's say in blood or in urine or in the cervical, let's say, secretions, it can tell us that this person is likely to develop this condition, or this person is having endometriosis, or this person has been, let's say, is progressing well from endometriosis treatment.
Staging of endometriosis, he says, will be crucial in determining which type of biomarker will be applicable.
When we look at endometriosis has 4 stages. So we have what is known as minimal, we have mild, we have moderate and severe. So depending on which stage the person is, that's what defines, or that's what is going to determine the kind of therapeutic intervention which will be applied to such a person. So when we talk about biomarkers, the world is heading towards biomarkers. We are trying to see what is so different from patients who are suffering from this condition, what's so different in their body as compared to patients who are not suffering from endometriosis. We are also trying to see, as I said, endometriosis has 4 stages. Yeah. So we are trying to see what's so unique for patients who are in stage number 4 as compared with patients who are in stage number 3, stage number 2, or stage number 1. So that's where we are doing a lot of research on. So the first one is to see what's the difference between patients.
Researchers globally have been burning the midnight oil to develop definitive biomarkers that are hallmarks of the condition. For instance, in their current research that is in its initial stages, Dr. Mesha and his team are trying to explore different biomarkers that can be tested using different body fluids like urine, blood, and also vaginal secretions.
The bottom line is, if we get a patient, this patient is having endometriosis, so we look at the tissue, we look at the endometriosis tissue, then we look at expression of substances or expression of these molecules in the endometriosis tissue, then now we see if these molecules which are elevated in endometriosis tissue, are they found in blood? Are these molecules also found in cervical secretions, for example? Are they found in urine? So if we can be able to get a consistent molecule which is expressed in tissues, endometriosis tissues, and the same molecule is highly expressed in blood in these patients, also the same molecule is expressed in cervical secretions and also urine, then that one will be a game changer as far as endometriosis diagnosis is concerned. What we are trying to see at this point, we have not even gone past the preclinical. We are trying to see what's so unique about these endometriosis patients and the controls. Yeah, so do we have any substance which is so unique? So as I'm talking right now, we have some wood results which are coming out from my group. Myself, during my PhD, I worked on some markers for endometriosis. I have a number of students who are also in the University of Gießen doing their PhD. They are also working on biomarkers. Then together with my collaborators in University of Edinburgh, which is in Scotland, and also University of Gießen, we are just working on these biomarkers, and we have been able to identify a number of molecules which are highly expressed in patients and which are expressed in different levels between the various stages in patients. And those molecules, they are not found in, they are not highly expressed in the normal controls. We have worked on a number of biomarkers. So what you find is that clustering levels, transforming growth factor betas, they are highly expressed in tissues which are endometriosis positive. Then also we have found these molecules to be highly expressed in blood. Yeah, so if you take blood, then you get what is known as the serum. So we have found this molecule to be highly expressed in blood. Now the other promising point, and we have a paper which is published online, we have also found these molecules to be highly expressed in the cervical secretions. Yeah, which seems to be a good breakthrough, because if we are able to confirm now, once we take these biomarkers through the various phases for drug development, so if we are able to confirm that these clustering are consistent, yeah, that's when we use the larger population, then it's going to be a great breakthrough, because now the patients, they are not going to go for laparoscopy. There's no need for these patients to go for ultrasound, which is very, very expensive. There's no need for these patients to go for MRI, magnetic resonance imaging. What we need to do is just to do a simple screening, like what happens to cervical cancer screening. Yeah, so we take for example, we take a smear, cervical secretion. Then we look at this secretion. If we have high levels of crystalline, then it will be a breakthrough.
For patients like Wandera, these promising results will be a game changer in diagnosing the condition without having to subject patients to invasive procedures that come at a high cost in order to be diagnosed.
It will shorten the period of diagnosis, so that's like a no-brainer, shortening the period. Secondly, we don't have to go, under. You don't have to go into theater, go through a laparoscopy. You'll have a shorter, there will not even be a recovery period. You will not need a recovery period, because for most patients, they require between 2 weeks to a month before they can go back to hospital. Even if a laparoscopy seems like it's minimally invasive, it's a minimally invasive procedure, but your internal organs are actually, tampered with, and they're disturbed, and so that takes a lot of time to recover from. So I feel like a non-invasive method, like if you're just going to draw my blood or something, you know, if I don't know if it's saliva or something, you know, it's going to be way cheaper. That means it's going to turn around, you know, like that period between the first time you actually manifest the symptom and diagnosis, meaning they can give you treatment and actually management and treatment faster, so that you don't have to now suffer like me, who has lost my ovaries. I mean, I'm turning 43 this year.
We have good news, and the good news is our group in Scotland has been able to identify a number of metabolites, more especially amino acids. So we have about 5 amino acids, which are these amino acids. They are highly expressed in patients as compared with the normal control, the normal persons. People are not suffering from this condition, and those amino acids. Maybe I know those are technical terms. We have amino acids like alanine, glycine, isoleucine. They are highly expressed in these patients as compared with the normal persons.
Experts say improving diagnosis of endometriosis and stopping its progression are key research priorities for the condition. With the ongoing research to come up with non-invasive diagnostic methods, will biomarkers add value to imaging in diagnosis of endometriosis in the future? Gloria Milimu, KTN News.